Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Rogue Trader with me, Bring It Down. Let's speak to High Factotum Generous Danrock. The corpulent man in lavish clothes bows before you, not without difficulty. A silver skull whirs over his shoulder, while the fingers of his augmented hand drum against the sheaf of papers he is holding, and he regards you with attentive interest through the lens of his magnifying implant. Greetings, your lordship. Generous Danrock at your service. Remind me, what is it you do on my ship? As a High Factotum, my duties encompass anything that might enrich you and your protectorate. I see to it that suppliers deliver all shipments on time, that our partners do not weasel out of their promises, and that all servants remember that the Emperor's grace can only be earned through toil for the good of the Von Valancius dynasty. I also make arrangements to ensure that our hold receives less than thorough inspections by port customs officers, and I find buyers for whatever you wish to sell. And of course, I ensure that the Protectorate's worlds prepare their tithe in a timely fashion. Let none ever say, in my lifetime, that the dynasty has disgraced itself with the late payment of the sacred tribute. Just so you're aware, Treasurer, in the past, my duty was to ensure that the governor of every world under my watch paid the tithe without fail. Even the smallest shortage was punished in full accordance with the letter of the Lex Imperialis. Lord Captain, I swear on the golden throne that your treasure is sacred to me. I take pride in keeping records of any and all transactions, and I am sure that even you will find my scrupulous financial chronicles to be to your satisfaction. The Factotum speaks with passion and dignity, but your stern gaze still causes his collar to darken with sweat in a matter of moments. How did you come to serve the Von Valancius dynasty? I come from Dargonis, your lordship. I have been a subject of your dynasty since birth, and have always strived to be of use to the great rogue trader. Alas, it was not my fate to be the primary heir of my own family, due to my being 15th in line for the title. So I decided not to stand in the way of those behind me, in case they attempted to shorten the waiting list at my expense. Generous lets out an almost kindly chuckle. While my brothers and sisters schemed against one another, I studied the exact sciences and mastered bookkeeping, the greatest art of the Adeptus Administratum. I must admit that the accumulation of wealth, something one can control, is far more exciting than hunting, carousing, and the other traditional amusements of my noble peers. What was it like working with Theodora? Oh, now that's a tricky question, your lordship. You ask it of everyone, knowing they risk losing their head should they let slip a careless remark about your predecessor. I shall put it thus. Working with Lady Theodora was never boring and always profitable. The Imperium has billions of subjects, but very few do what they love and what they are best suited to. I would say Lady Theodora was one of the fortunate ones. She was a model rogue trader, as she surrounded herself with those who excelled at and loved their work. Hers was a rare talent indeed. I want to know what you think of your fellow crew members. Keeping tabs on your subordinates. A wise move. Tell me who interests you. Now endeavor to be as honest as possible. Generous's eyes light up. He is obviously eager to speak his mind. Tell me what you think of Seneschal Abelard Versarion. Lady Theodora managed to do what even the Imperial Navy could not. Teach Master Versarion to carry out orders that he fundamentally disagrees with. I do not know what method she used, but the result was impressive. Having said that, there is something else you need to know, Lord Captain. Your Seneschal is capable of being something far greater than a mere conduit for your will. He possessed the cunning and experience to run the Protectorate passively whenever Lady Theodora was away. And that really is saying something. Keep an eye on that old officer, I say, or alternatively, turn him into a faithful ally. I'd like to hear your opinion of Conrad Voigtveer, the former Master of Whispers. I hope I never see him set foot aboard this vessel again. Not even as a servitor. Although, he would be able to do that at least... He would be able to do at least some good that way. Someone has to clean the latrines after all. The Factotum's bloated face grows stern. You gave us all quite a fright on that ill-fated day, Lord Captain. And still, to speak candidly, I never enjoyed Master Voigtveer's company, but I believed him to be a man who knew how to do his job. Regretfully, I was mistaken. Turned out Conrad lacked the most important quality for a master of whispers: unwavering loyalty to the rogue trader, and his failing came to light in the most deplorable manner. What do you have to say about Voxmaster Victus Ptolemy? Ah yes, the Voidborn. You know, in my family, we used such creatures as quarry whenever we went hunting. Mutants are the bane of humanity, an unseen tumor that threatens to end us all. But I digress. In the brief time Ptolemy has spent in post as Voxmaster, I have not noticed any significant flaws in her character, or anything that would make me question her professional qualities. Needless to say, she is very diligent, as is any Voidborn seeking to earn their master's affection. I believe you can trust in her skills and loyalty. So when he mentions hunting, he is talking about hunting humans. Mutant humans, but humans nonetheless. I wish to discuss something else. As you say, your lordship. I want to know more about the people who buy our plunder. Of course, Lord Captain. Who interests you exactly? We most often deal with the followers of St. Drusus, the Explorators, the Casbalica Mission, or Emperor Forgive Us, the Fellowship of the Void. What do the followers of St. Drusus acquire from us? The Drusians still hope to bring the Cronus Expanse to the warm embrace of the faith, just as their flock hopes to receive the aid of the Drusian missionaries. Each crate of food, shipment of clothes, or box of medicine marked with your seal is a sign the rogue trader himself believes in the sect's future success. Reverend Hieronymus is the first among the Drusians, and is most often seen in Footfall's grand atrium. A gloomy fellow, but some of us believe him to be a saint. Tell me more about the Explorators. Or Explorators. Members of the Explorator Cognizance fleet, which has been roaming the Cronus Expanse for a good while now. Omnissiah knows what they are hoping to find, but their acolytes regularly show up on inhabited worlds, seeking bits of sacred knowledge, tracking down mechanical relics, and sniffing out Xeno artifacts, if truth be told. Supposedly, they want to save the ignorant rabble from corruption. A tech priest named Opticon22 does business with us on the fleet's behalf. He can be found at the docks on Footfall. I'm interested in the Casbalica mission. Masters of the cold trade, immoral criminals, and notorious crooks to the last man. The mission is but one branch of this mafia gang that has taken root in the Calixis sector. An imperial sector located in the Segmentum Obscurus, next to the frontier region of the Cronus Expanse. And there's some creepy stuff that goes on there. You can do business with them as long as you take the necessary precautions. They're led by Vladimir Takara, who recently appointed himself Liege of Footfall. Of course, he is a trusted ally of rogue trader Winterscale, but he will not refuse you, another of the Emperor's anointed. If you wish to talk to Vladimir, look for him in the Liege's palace on Footfall. What is this Fellowship of the Void? Jonas emits a laugh-like gurgle. A pompous name, is it not? In truth, they are a gang of pirates who are forever squabbling over loot and territory. However, some of their little flotillas need supplies, or can take awkward cargo off our hands without asking questions. Of course, there's always a risk that these scoundrels will change their mind and attempt to board us instead, but so far our macro cannons have managed to keep them in line. They say Ryza Calvaria speaks on the Fellowship's behalf. The Adeptus Amisakis on Footfall is rumored to be her favorite haunt. Why are we giving away our spoils to these people in the first place? To profit from them, of course. Most of the things you will find during expeditions are complete junk to one such as yourself, but the less fortunate and affluent servants of the Emperor think them treasures, especially when they are bestowed by the great rogue trader himself. Drusian fanatics and pirate cutthroats, Casbalica dealers and explorators. None will refuse our help in these dark and trying times, and there may come a time when we shall be the ones requiring aid, and it would be beneficial to have allies willing to provide it. That's true. If you get enough reputation with certain factions, they do help you out later. I suggest we change the subject. Certainly, Lord Captain. I'd like to replace the painting of the late Theodora in my chambers. Hang my portrait instead. A generous bows obsequiously. It will be done, your lordship. We can also hire mercenaries. I wish to bolster my retinue with skilled fighters. Rest assured, there are people of the most outstanding talents among the thousands of your crew. I'll contact the overseers at once, so we can create more characters. The High Factotum, Janner Stanrock greets you with a cool smile and the merest hint of a bow. Pleasure to see you, Lord Captain. How may I be of assistance? My retinue and I are in need of training. I'll show you our sparring chambers at once, and we can also respec. I do need to respec Argenta, because one of the talents I grabbed her does not actually work the way I thought it did. I gave her the Demolition Engineer talent, which increases the damage of ranged area attacks. Which you would think... We're ready for any orders, Lord Captain. You would think is a ranged area attack, since it is a ranged attack and also covers an area, but turns out I was wrong. Which I think someone had also told me in my previous playthrough as well. But it worked because I was using a flamer then. But either way. The tall middle-aged woman stares straight ahead, her eyes vacant, as she rubs the implant at her temple. Her collar is undone, and one of the clasps is on the verge of falling off. Sensing your presence, Idira turns her head toward you and offers you a crooked smile, even as her eyes look right through you. Idira, about your abilities.
What are you talking about, Lord Captain?
With noticeable effort, Idira focuses her eyes on you. She lets out a nervous laugh. You are a Psyker. Psykers only granted the right to live with the Emperor's blessing. Have you ever been to Terra?
Look, Lady Theodora couldn't care less if some eggheads measured my brains or not. It's not about the seal on your forehead, get it? It's about what's in your gut, if it's rotten or not. My gut's stronger than the adamantine on this here ship, and my implants are better than the ones they put in you on your Terra. If they weren't, I wouldn't have lived as long as I have.
Yeah, and Nego goes well with being a Psyker in Warhammer 40,000. Idira says nothing for a few seconds, then exaggeratedly rolls her eyes. Idira bares her teeth in a savage grin, a febrile gleam in her eye. Where do you come from?
Lyra, an outlying world in the Heathen Stars region. In the Coronis Expanse, the deeper you go, the less visible the Astronomicon gets, and the less people know about the Imperium. The arrival of a rogue trader is the best thing that can happen to a world like that. The very best.
So the Astronomicon is essentially a lighthouse in the warp. It's a coalition of Psykers on Terra. It gives basically navigators a North Star in which to guide through the warp. Yeah, so the Psychic Beacon helps navigators to triangulate a course for their void ships through the warp. Tell me about Lyra.
It's an out-of-the-way planetoid between two faint stars. On Lyra, a dozen local tyrants fight over 5 measly continents. But they use everything they can to win, from poison to psychers. I haven't been there in many years, but there's nothing for me to miss. Trust me.
Idira begins wringing her shaking hands.
But here on the ship is a different story altogether. I saw more wonders in my first year serving Lady von Valancius than I'd seen in my whole life on Lyra. Like my first journey through the warp, I was in bed for 3 days. I felt like supernovas were exploding in my head. I only found out later that I'd gotten off easy. Just through the bulkhead in the bay next to mine, a whole team turned into... Look at me rambling on, Lord Captain. Pay no attention.
Idira breaks off. Now, you never finished your story about your first time crossing the warp.
It wasn't like it was a very fun trip, Lord Captain. But look, if you want to be entertained, I'm the woman for the job. I'll entertain you with one of the stories from my collection, no problem. But if you want to hear about the time I melted everyone in the bay next door, well, I just don't really want to go into the details on that one, all right?
Idira rubs her nose. What did you do before you came to be on the ship?
Oh, I embroidered wall hangings in honor of our national heroes. did the same thing I do here, Lord Captain. Divining. Our rulers prized the ability to see into the future. Every psyker that could be found was worth a small fortune on Lyra.
Idira cackles.
There's no such thing as a peaceful life on Lyra. People like me were especially sought after. They'd pick psychers up wherever they found them, buy kids off their parents, even just abduct them. Take me for instance. I got taken from my street gang. The older kids sold me when they noticed there was something off about me. The ruling dynasties had schools where they trained us and beat us black and blue. And then they packed us off to serve. Some of us held on for a long time, but others didn't last. Not everyone's as smart and talented as me, you know. Some people crossed the line and were out of commission before their time.
Idira looks at you expectantly, then as though clarifying, she uses her hand to indicate a head exploding and laughs. How did you end up in the Rogue Trader service?
Theodora von Valancius paid a visit to the ruler I was serving at the time. I don't know what the visit was for, and it's no business of mine anyway. I can still remember the way the voices in my head changed when I looked at her. They were practically screaming. She had so much behind her, and plenty ahead of her too.
Idira squints as though she's peering at something far away.
And as I gawped at her, all of a sudden I heard a whisper. A hint, a suggestion, nothing more. But I know the difference between idle chatter and a real threat. I seized my chance and approached Theodora. I managed to whisper a couple of words in her ear before the wardens dragged me away. They beat me and locked me up. No wonder. It wasn't my place to converse with outsiders. And then, Theodora's people came for me. They broke down the wall, butchered their guards. Also, I could tell them my warning in full. So, I said the rest, but I didn't want to go back to my old life. And so I entered the service of the von Valancius dynasty.
Have you ever been off the ship?
A few times. Not many. And if I think about it, why would I want to? I've got everything I need here. All the whispers I hear are familiar ones. They almost feel like family. And if I want to hear about the nightmares off the ship, I can. After some Amisec. But don't go getting the wrong idea. If I have to, I'll follow you to the edge of the galaxy.
Idira winces and rubs her eyes. Let's talk about something else.
Of course, Lord Captain.
I got a new story for me, Idira.
You bet I do, Lord Captain.
Idira becomes much more animated, and her expression turns slightly dreamy as she recalls one of her stories.
Okay, so we went to Footfall once. Well, I mean, Lord Captain Theodora went to Footfall a lot. But on that occasion, she took me with her for some reason. My day had gotten off to a bad start. My head had been yammering since I woke up, but there was nothing else for it. I had to go. We arrived at the place, and what a place! All the gentlemen and ladies dressed to kill, showing off their encrusted implants, all clustered around little tables. Well, turned out it was a gaming den. And not just any gaming den, but one run by somebody with deep pockets for people with just as much cash to splash. You should have seen it. People gambling away planets in a game of regicide. Anyway, so the Lord Captain wanted me to help her beat some guy. So I tell her, the chips won't land in your favor. You'll get a bad hand. Don't sit down at that table, your ladyship. But did she listen? Of course she didn't. If there's one thing she never lacked, it's stubbornness. So they sat down and the cards were dealt. I'm hovering around like I'm not involved, but I'm keeping my eye on things. And everything in my head keeps getting louder and louder. Anyway, it's a good thing I realized in time that my mind wasn't going haywire over a losing hand, but something else. I made some excuse to drag the Lord Captain up from the table and took her away from that place. And a few minutes later, the room where we'd been... It turned out some wise guy had the same bright idea to bring a pet psyker along with him. One of those ones who just scuttle around in Footfall's underbelly. And the psyker just freaked out, I guess. After all the commotion, people went to see what happened in the room. And they'd all gone for each other's throats. Literally. With teeth. And I think they completely detached that asteroid from Footfall and pushed it off into open space so it would head off toward the local star.
Idira can't help herself and bursts out laughing. And weeping, Idira wipes away a tear. What's it like being a psyker?
Lord Captain, forgive me, but it would be like talking to a person born blind about colors. I could spend hours explaining, but it wouldn't make any sense to you.
Idira tilts her head to one side, to listening closely to something.
Every psyker feels their connection with the warp in their own way. One person might see spots and shadows out of the corner of their eye. Another feels fingers running down their spine. As for me, I've got a door in my head. One that's open just a crack. There's no way to close it, no matter how hard I try. I've just had to get used to the whispers from the other side. When I need to use it for work, I listen in more closely. But I usually just try not to notice it.
I haven't read the description for psyker yet. An individual of any intelligent species who possesses some degree of psychic ability or powers. How do you live with this whispering in your head?
Training, habit, and a little amasec and a couple other things you can get on the lower decks. If you put all those together, it makes things bearable. Sometimes I even wonder if I'm imagining half the voices I hear. You know, when life on board gets a little boring. Better than listening to the living, anyhow.
Idira shrugs and chuckles. What would happen if your door burst open?
Well, if the door opens, that means somebody's planning to come in, right? But screw them. They're not coming through. Trust me. I know how to keep my valuable head locked up tight.
Idira chuckles, but there's a shrill, strained quality to her laughter. Aren't you afraid of losing control?
Only losers who are afraid of their own gift lose control. Or idiots who never figure out what they are before it's too late. Or little kids who want to play around with their shiny new toy. If you don't know the limits of your abilities, or you're always bouncing around in your own head, that's a recipe for disaster.
Can you see my future?
All right. That's what I'm here for, after all. So, I'm just going to lean on that door in my head a little more, prick up my ears, and listen to what the warp's got to say about you. If you'll allow it, I can listen right now.
Idira wrinkles her nose and looks around. Then she wipes her hands, gives her head a shake, and finally nods. Idira grins like she's already heard some salacious detail. Sure.
All right, let's hear what they're whispering about you.
Idira laughs, rubs her hands together, and suddenly freezes with a vacant smile on her face, her head slightly tilted. You feel goosebumps appear on your skin, and your collar begins to waver ever so slightly, as if moved by a breeze from a half-open door.
Seek not on firm ground, but in a golden hall suspended in the void. There waits a child without kin, but with a name blind to truth. She draws the brush across the canvas and does not notice that her palette is full not of paint, but of blood. And with each smear, this well does not deplete, but fills and fills up to the brim. One thing is clear. When this vessel overflows, none will remain unstained.
So that's about one of our companions, actually the next companion we get.
Among the blind men and false prophets, a red-robed sage seeks the answer to a question. He does not know that it is not the answer he must seek, but the question that will draw everything into focus. Will you help him, rogue trader? But mark that sometimes ignorance is sweeter than oblivion.
That is the companion we get after our next companion.
A chained hound chases after glimmers of the aurora, but sparks in the scent of oil confound his nose. The chain trails after him. What will happen if you pick it up? Will you become his master, or merely another beast in the pack of his true lord?
I'm pretty sure that's about Heinrich's, the 3 companions from now.
The glow of dawn bursts forth from its prison. Dungeon walls cannot contain the dark essence wallowing in the dust. A naive cub pushes his nose into a familiar hand, one that holds death in twisted glass. Cherish it or cast it off as a burden. The sword of change has already been raised. What is one more life to it?
That might be a DLC companion. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Lord Captain. The voices are going wild. I can't make out a thing. I'll try to rein them in, somehow. But for now...
Idira strains to listen, then frowns and shakes her head. The psycho shrugs sheepishly and sniffs. I'd like to hear your augury, Idira. What awaits me in the future?
All right. Let's hear what they're whispering about you.
Idira laughs, rubs her hands together, and suddenly freezes with a vacant smile on her face. I think we've just read this. Her head slightly tilted. You feel goosebumps appear on your skin, and your color begins to waver ever so slightly, as if moved by a breeze from a half-open door.
I'm sorry, Lord Captain. The voices are going wild.
Alright, same as before.
I can't make out a thing. I'll try to rein them in, somehow. But for now...
Did you know Theodora von Valancius well?
None of the officers knew the Lord Captain well. Not even Abelard, and she was always closer to him than anyone else. She told me from the off if I ever listened to anything in the warp about her without her permission, I'd be going out through the airlock. I'm not an idiot, so I never stuck my nose where it didn't belong. Only when I was asked.
Idira shakes her head.
It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that she's gone. Lady von Valancius gave me everything I have. She opened the stars to me and the paths between them. I still think I can hear her voice.
Idira's eyes darken and a strange, otherworldly expression comes over her face. Idira lets out a sharp breath and shakes her head. Things are strained between you and Argenta. Isn't that right?
The little sister is afflicted with her own set of voices, ones that whisper to her about corruption and heresy. The silly girl doesn't realize that if she wants to find the source, she needs to start by looking in her own head.
Idira falls silent, and then in a different voice adds, "Must take my leave."
Of course. Always at your service, whenever you need me.
Alright, so unfortunately we don't have time to set off on an adventure. So I am going to call it here. So, to clarify, normally I would have knocked out all these conversations in one episode. But, time is scarce. Hopefully going forward we'll have, normal length episodes. But for now I am going to call it here, and next time we will set off towards the Navis Nobilite station. Now, I've heard that depending on what choices you make, like where you go first in this system, in the Rycad system, determines the fate of some characters. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, because I think it's optimal, because I want to get another companion before I go to the other dungeon, and then save the main planet for last, but I don't know, I might mix it up. We'll see. Either way, for now, thanks for watching, and hope to see you guys in the next one.